Welcome back. On today's video, we're talking about yet another scam, and this scam is called Quishing. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Phishing, I believe, comes from a combination of two words. Phishing, of course, is from emails that come out and try to direct you to different sites, but because this is using QR codes, it is called Quishing. I didn't come up with it. Don't say anything. So anyway, I wanted to look at this article, and this article is from CNBC.com. I've seen a bunch of other articles, but this one would seem to be fairly comprehensive, so we will go with it. And it talks about almost 3/4 of Americans use QR codes. And within QR codes, there's really no verification that what you're scanning is actually accurate. So we're trusting these QR codes to do what they say they're going to do. Now, for those who don't know what a QR code looks like, it looks something like this. And it may be on a parking meter, utility bill, appliance that comes, packages. It could be on a whole lot of different things. I've seen them recently that come with a little code in them that says, free gift, scan me. Now, that could be a scam also, and we've talked about that on other videos. But when QR codes rolled out, they were kind of quirky, they were fun. You could scan them real quick and it directs you to someone's website. You don't have to type in a website, a long web address on your phone, which can be a pain, especially if you have bigger thumbs. But as QR codes have become more and more prevalent, they're now becoming targets for malicious use, is what the article talks about, and it goes through a bunch of different options on this. The QR codes, even though a lot of them are valid, and most of them are valid, which is where good scams come from, they're based on something valid, and then they use the minority of instances to redirect them. It could take you to a phishing website that steals your personal information, and generally on a phishing website, of course, you have to put in your personal information, so verifying that you're at the right location is good, but it could also, and this is where the bigger problem comes into, it could download malicious malware onto your phone and give hackers access to your device. Now, part of this, I believe, is because it is not only you typing something into your browser taking you to a website, but the way QR codes work is you're using your camera, which is one piece of hardware and software, to scan something that redirects you to another piece within your phone, another piece of software. And that transfer within your device could take you to a bunch of different things, and it could give people access to other apps. For example, I scanned one earlier that takes you to YouTube, so it's not using the web browser. It could possibly take you to another app within your phone, and then let the hackers do what they do, especially if it's able to download malware onto your phone. So let's keep on going through here. One of the appeals that they're talking about is cyber criminals slapping a fake QR code on parking meters or on utility bills as they're sent out if they have access to those somehow. And then when you scan that parking meter to pay for parking, it would direct you to a website that appears to be legit. And as you put in your credit card number, now they have that and they can go out and have a shopping spree. So the expert in here is Gaurav Sharma, and I probably am slaughtering the pronunciation of that, so I apologize, Professor Sharma. And he says that he expects QR scams to increase as the use of QR codes spreads, and I believe that's accurate. As more and more QR codes are prevalent, and as our use becomes more prevalent, we become comfortable using those and don't really check the security of the QR code that we're scanning. So the moral of the story, as you'll see as we go through here, is be very vigilant on what QR codes you scan. Don't just take it as being okay just because it happens to be a QR code that looks like it's legit, like it's on a parking meter or something else. Make sure you are looking for the location, make sure you're verifying it's legit, and if you have any concerns, the valid ones that I'm seeing, at least the ones where they're necessary to use, for example, parking, where I did that in Lake Geneva the other day in Michigan, there was actually a web address that you can type in, and you can look at the web address. It looked legit by the address, and I just typed it in instead of using any QR code. So a study this year from cybersecurity platform KeepNet found that 26% of all malicious links are now sent via QR code. And I believe part of that is because people are getting better at identifying the phishing emails, even though those are getting more and more sophisticated. But as people are sending out QR codes, well, we still trust them. And we kind of think, well, it's just a link. I can check the link when I get there. And that's not necessarily the case. In fact, NordVPN says 73% of Americans scan QR codes without verification. And more than 26 million have already been directed to malicious sites. Yeah, that's a problem. We need to make sure that we are being more vigilant as people are becoming more and more aggressive at taking our money from us. Now, it talks here about there's some new developments on smart codes, or people are trying to develop smarter smart codes that will help people not get scammed, but in the interim, until we have some sort of security verification, and that may come in the form of a new app or whatever, and probably a paid service, the way things are going, we need to be very vigilant. So one of the things that does point out in here are there are different locations and different types of QR codes that are more vulnerable than others. So for example, museums are less vulnerable because museums are less vulnerable because the scammers are looking to collect cash. So if you're at a museum and it's getting you a description of an exhibit, that is less likely to be the case than if you were at a train station trying to buy a ticket. At a museum, you're not generally going to pay for a description of some sort of an exhibit, but if you're trying to buy tickets on a plane, a train, parking lot, something like that, then you are more, because you expect to put in a credit card. And that's where a scammer would be targeting you, where it's very easy to go to a parking lot and slap a new QR code up, just like when you go to a gas station, they're showing some of the skimmers for debit cards that people are using. It's very simple for someone just to print out a QR code and then have someone at a parking lot print it. Now, just to give you an idea of how easy it is to generate a QR code, I did a quick Google search on QR code generator, and I put in my YouTube address, my YouTube channel address, and it immediately generated this QR code. So if you happen to be able to point your camera at this QR code, it will direct you to the Ask Dad YouTube channel. It's that simple. It's pasting in a web address, gives you a QR code. This is free, didn't cost me anything to do, and that's how easy it is to generate a QR code. So very, very convenient, but very, very simple for a scammer to redirect you to a different website also. Now, here is something surprising. It says Apple iPhone users are slightly more likely to fall victim to this crime. Now, why is that? It's because iPhone users generally rely on their devices more than Android users. Android users know that they don't have the securities built into the Android devices that iPhones do. And so Android users are generally more vigilant when it comes to not scanning illegitimate QR codes. iPhone users believe that their phones are more protected than Android users. And in general, that is true for software hacks on the iPhone. However, QR codes are not using your phone, they're redirecting you to a different website, and you probably don't have those securities. So it talks about here 70% of iPhone users have scanned a QR code to begin and complete a purchase versus 63% of Android users. So just because you believe your device is more secure than others does not give you protections against this type of a scan. So be very, very vigilant on that. Continuing on through here, it goes through just a couple of other pieces, and one of the points that it makes is QR codes were not built with security in mind. They were built to make life easier. And that's very true. It's made to point your camera at something, direct you to a website that you don't have to type in that address for. Some of these web addresses are getting longer and longer, and typing it on your phone can take quite an amount of time. So QR codes were simply meant to be easy, but that makes them perfect for scammers to use against us. So I hope this video has been helpful. The key takeaway that I'm finding from this is make sure that if you're going to use a QR code, know where it goes to. Make sure you're verifying that it is in fact what you want to do and that it's legitimate. If you can't do that, type in the web address or use some other mechanism. It's worth taking an extra 2 minutes to verify, to type in a web address, to use the app, to log in, whatever it may be, than to get scammed out of $100, $200, $300. Remember that if you go to a scammer's website with your credit card and you're paying for parking, say, and you expect it to be a $20 charge for parking. Well, if you put in your credit card number, they're not necessarily limited to the $20 that you put in. You may end up with a $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 charge as they use your credit card to go to other websites and put in their information and buy whatever it is. We've seen that happen a number of times. So be vigilant, be aware. Don't trust everything just because it looks legitimate. This is something that is becoming more and more common, and with a little bit of vigilance, we can save ourselves a lot of headache and money. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, please give us a like down below. If you'd like to see more content like this, do consider subscribing to the channel. And if you know someone who should watch this, please do share. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.